One of the things that the Russians are trying to deal with is the how to come to terms with the 74 years of the Soviet legacy, right? So when you think about Russian national identity, you're thinking about, going back to 862 when the first Varangian princes came to the Slavic lands. That's the very beginning, of the story. But somewhere in the middle, you have this issue of, in 1917 to 1991, what did the Soviet Union mean to Russians? And they have to come to terms with that. But one of the things that happened during the Soviet Union was there was a bigger push for women's equality than anywhere else in the world. Now, sometimes it wasn't carried out, sometimes it remained on paper, but in theory, women's equality was an important facet, an important tenet of the Soviet Union. So now, today, when we look at the post-Soviet period, when the Russian Federation, there's a kind of response to that, sort of earlier time. One of the very interesting things about the Soviet Union was it was one of the very few places where women actually went into combat during the Second World War, or what the Russians now call the Great Patriotic War of the Fatherland. And so you have a very interesting situation where there were women in space, women who were aviators, women who are snipers, women in combat. These were roles that were in many other places women didn't have, certainly not in the United States and Western Europe. And so women were much more engaged in social activities and work in the Soviet Union. But now there's a kind of retrenchment, rethinking about what the role of women should be. And so paradoxically, women are now less encouraged to be in a lot of sort of work activities. And there's more emphasis on home and family and raising children. And for women, one of the things that's been a real issue is the concern with the demographic crisis, right? Especially in the 1990s, the Russian population was declining. Death rates were rising and birth rates were lowering. And the result was that they weren't replacing the population. So there's been a real emphasis, since the 90s on families, on family values, on having big families. The Russian state actually pays couples to have second and third children, and more. And so because motherhood has become a very important role in contemporary Russian life, that sort of by definition means if the ideal woman is a mother, then work is kind of second to that.